Yeah, thanks again, Dan, for coming on the show. Providing value. I've been following you for a while, so I know exactly who you are and what you do. But for those who may not know, just start off by explaining who you are.
Yeah, so thanks for having me. Name is Dan Haberkost for anyone that hasn't followed me at all. And I started investing in real estate in 2018 with a simple duplex. Uh, Read Rich Dad Poor Dad, discovered bigger pockets, and house hacking was, the easiest way for me to get started. So I was still working a full-time job. I was 21, just finishing college, bought that duplex, and what is Bigger Pockets all about? Especially back then, it was all about units, accruing units. So I thought, all right, how do I go and buy more? Well, I bought another house hack that same year, and then I got to the point where I realized, the whole low and no money down thing really isn't applicable to buying a lot of buy and hold real estate. You can pick up a house hack or two, maybe three, but that's about it. Even if you buy properties with low down payments, things go wrong. You need cash to buy a lot of real estate.
Yeah.
And so I started going to a local real estate group, an investor meetup, and I met a guy who'd been doing land and development for 40 plus years. And every weekend, I'd go down to Pueblo West. I was living in Colorado Springs at the time, Pueblo West, and I'd help him where he was building houses. And so I was helping him source the land, put together the deals, learning about the financing, and that is what ultimately got me into the land space. So this is late 2018. I'm from Ohio, but had moved to Colorado by that time, and that's where Front Range Land came from. So I saw an avenue for scaling my income so that I could go and buy more and more rental properties. And so started Front Range Land early 2019. I was sourcing land for him, for some of his friends, for other builders I had met in Pueblo West, and I left my job and took it and ran with it full time. So I've been really, to put it simply, sourcing land direct to seller. Now I have a team, but at first it was just me via mailers, via cold calling, buying land at a discount, and much of it we just buy and sell. And then a few lots at a time we'll put new construction on. And so that has been the vehicle for making money that has then allowed me to buy more and more rental properties throughout the last now 7 years. So that's kind of how I think about it. There's two buckets. There's the active business, front range land, and then there's the investing, which is the rental properties. So that's where I'm at today.
Oh, that's awesome. That's an incredible story, man. And I'm sure it's been a journey for you, so 2018, things were a lot different in the market, of course,
Hmm.
definitely with land. It seems like back then, probably there wasn't as much competition, I'm sure. Uh,
Hmm.
it's interesting to me that you say, you do the land, but you rentals. Most land guys, they try to stay away from rentals, So you're still dealing with houses and like picking up houses for your own personal portfolio?
Yeah, those are totally different buckets in my opinion. I would ask those land guys, what are they doing for themselves 10, 20 years from now? Where are they putting the cash they're making from land? Do they want to just flip land forever? Because, maybe they're just putting it all in the stock market or in other assets, but I want to have income passively coming in, and also I want to be able to reduce my tax burden. And real estate rentals have been a great means of doing that. And you hear a lot of land guys talking about the pains that come with rental properties, which it's a spectrum. It's like anything. I built a new duplex last year. I kept it as a rental. Nothing needs repaired. I have great tenants because it's a new building. That's passive, right? And so, yes, if you go buy a bunch of old crappy real estate in crappy areas, it is not going to be passive. It's going to be a headache. If you buy nice real estate in nice areas, it can be very passive. So, those are just totally different buckets, and land is just my means to acquire more and more assets.
Love it, love it. So are you ever taking on the land and just owner financing the land and creating monthly payments from that?
Yeah, I have a number of payments. I've done several dozen of those over the years. But a lot of the land that I'm selling is to people that are going to build on it in the near future. So many of those got paid off very quickly. I don't do a ton of just rural acreage, recreational land. So that's been less of a model. But it is nice. I have I don't know, 4 or 5 payments coming in every month. So that is helpful.
Awesome, awesome. So you said you're direct to seller with your land. So you're
Hmm.
traditionally sending out marketing, and getting calls, right? Is that what you're doing? You're doing direct mail. PPC?
Direct mail and cold calling.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Mhm.
So as far as the cold calling goes, I would guess that you have like a team of cold call. Like, do you have like VAs? Are you doing this in-house?
So in-house, I have two guys, both based in the U.S. Having done this for a long time, started cold calling in 2021. I would highly recommend making sure they don't have an accent if they are VAs, and making sure you have control over it. I have never had a good experience outsourcing marketing, and so yeah, in-house, two guys cold calling heavily. You know, each of them are calling 2 to 3 thousand numbers a week. And that's been really, really powerful, especially in markets that have become really, really saturated for mail. Cold
Yeah,
calling has still been productive.
that's good to hear. And I'm a huge fan of cold calling. I've been doing this about 6 years, and cold calling is still a main thing for me. I just love it, man. Mail is
Mhm.
good. I love mail, but like you said, mail is getting highly competitive, especially with land. How are you guys adapting to, just all of the people that's trying to jump into land right now?
Yeah, there's a couple different things. I'll go kind of big picture how I think about it, then I'll go a little more specific as far as how we're refining our mail and our systems. So big picture. Think about house wholesaling, right? I went to a meetup here in San Diego last Friday. It was kind of a workshop. A couple guys that have been house flippers and wholesalers for a long time, you know, decade plus. We're talking, and they're still getting deals just like they did 10 years ago by going direct to seller with mail. And house direct to seller on that side of the business or and that asset is much more competitive than for land. I mean, I just interviewed a guy on my podcast a few months ago who started a direct to seller marketing business for houses in San Diego this year. Well, okay, if they can do it, I'm certain that land is not comparable as far as competency or competition, as far as volume and competency of competition, as far as or compared to houses. So I keep that top of mind. You know, there's
Yeah,
always things come and go, come and go. And house wholesaling was the hot thing for a long time, and then that really slowed down. You don't see as many courses on it. You don't see as many people at the meetups that say they're new wholesalers. Land got really sexy, and I think that's died down some
yeah,
in the last year. And so, all that to say, if you're consistent with your marketing, if you really work to refine your closing abilities, refine your knowledge of the asset, so you can speak more confidently than your competition, you can still get deals. I mean, ultimately, nothing's changed. It's, yes, more competitive, but that's kind of the nature of business. It always gets harder over time. And then number two, speaking more tactically, our mailers have gotten more and more refined to really fit the worries and motivations of the seller avatar. So this is very different than going after distressed single family homes. We have
yeah,
done hundreds and hundreds of deals, and I can tell you distress is almost never a factor. Even the people that are behind on taxes and are going to lose their property, it's not the house they live in, it's a piece of land that they probably inherited or they bought 20 years ago and they don't care about. And so
yeah,
the seller avatar tends to be more just apathetic, tired of paying taxes, looking for certainty of closure, looking for certainty that you're not a scammer. That tends to be the seller avatar. And so we don't have quick cash close on our mailers because, well, it's land. What else are you going to buy it with? And it's not particularly important to these sellers. They
yeah.
rarely care whether we close in 30 or 60 days or 90 days, many times. So on a tactical side, just really, really nailing down who sells land at a discount and then refining our scripts for the cold callers and our copy on the mailers for that seller avatar.
Love it, love it. I think that you're a very smart guy. I can tell. Um, yeah, for real though. I mean, you've been doing this so long, man, and when I think of land guys, you're top of my list, man. You know what I mean? You're crushing it. So, I respect you just for keeping at it all of these years, and you're still building on that and keeping the same goal alive, even though your dreams and goals may change a little bit.
Mhm.
You stay focused, so that's awesome. As far as your cold, you said that you're still doing mail, each of your guys, 2, 3 thousand calls a week. Are you guys going after just like land in general, or are you niching it down to those tax liens or those probates?
Kind of a mix. So there's some markets that we know really well. We have great realtors. They're really hot still, and so we just target pretty much everyone.
Yeah,
And then there's some markets where maybe it's slowed down, maybe it's less desirable, but there's very specific types of land that are very in demand. And this has been really useful where, the last 2 months of last year were very slow, but the first 10 it was a good year overall. And a big part of that is focusing on land that's highly, highly in demand. So, I'm thinking of one county where most of it is just sitting, most of the land. But if you have a 5+ acre lot, those sell like that. So we go after the 5+ acres there. There's some of these markets where this endless single family lots that aren't worth much, but the duplex lots sell very quickly and at much, much, much higher prices, right? So figuring out what is your version of that in a given market and targeting that has been really, really useful. And this is where kind of that second layer of due diligence and then also having excellent local experts that will help you really makes a difference. So,
Yeah.
to answer your question bluntly, some places we just hit everything, and some places we're very targeted. As far as tax liens, we're working on getting back to that. I had gotten away from that because we were pretty much marketing to everyone, so they would get hit organically. But we're working on pulling lists in some prime counties and hitting them with very targeted mailers.
Sweet, sweet. Sounds good, man. So as far as, you get them under contract, you get a good price on it. Are you usually assigning these or usually closing on them and reselling them on the market? How does your dispo look?
Vast majority of them we close and list on the market. We did, I don't know, 8 to 10 assignments last year, but most of them are just close and resell because to get highest and best, it's hard to do that via assignments just because there's, you're on a time scale there. And I am selling, or a lot of the land we're selling ultimately is going to be bought by somebody who just wants to put their dream home there. And so trying to assign those types of lots is really challenging.
Sure, I understand that. How many markets are you guys in right now?
Markets as in county, as in state. How can you
Let's yeah,
refine the
let's
question
go
a little
by
more?
states. How many states are you buying in?
Really heavily in North Carolina and Florida. Still continuing to build a few houses and do business in Colorado. And we're hitting South Carolina too, but haven't gotten a ton of traction there. We've done a few deals, but mostly North Carolina and Florida.
Awesome. So, what made you choose those two markets? Was it just the amount of activity and population?
Yeah. Initially, I was all in Colorado, and a lot of my business was in Pueblo West. And then that market just got absolutely ground to a halt when they put a moratorium on all new water taps.
Mm.
So this is a market where n almost none of the land is large enough to put a well, and so the market just stopped. And we had a kind of a pretty protracted period of time where we didn't know, are we just screwed? Are all these lots that I own worthless? Is the business? But long story short, eventually it came out. They were increasing the cost of water taps and they were restricting the amount sold every year with a deadline of, hey, once we hit this amount, we're out. And so the market did open back up several months later and things continued, but all or almost all my business was there at the time. And so I had a, oh shit moment. And so I went, looked around the country and settled on Florida. This was 3 years ago that this happened. Settled on Florida. Things were busy in a lot of different markets there, and then I saw the success we had in Florida in 2022, and so at the end of that year moved into North Carolina because I saw some more areas there that just had a tremendous amount of activity. Plus, we're more under the radar.
Yeah, yeah. I love both of those markets, North Carolina is such a sweet market because of the conversations with people. It's kind of like where I'm at in West Virginia. Even when they're mad at you, they're usually nice about it. Like even
Yeah.
when they're like, "Oh, stop calling me," they're like, "Oh, sweetie, it's okay," So I love that. I'm
Yeah.
actually I cold call myself a few hours a day, and I'm testing out some markets in North Carolina just because. My market's really weird, Dan. Like we have a lot of mountains here and a lot of hillside. That's what a lot of our land is in West Virginia. Do
Mhm.
you tend to stay away from markets like that?
Not necessarily. I mean, I started in Colorado. Granted, Pueblo West was very flat. You just need always have someone check it in person.
Yeah.
Ultimately, that's the thing. Have someone check it in person. You can look at the topo map on Regrid or Land ID or elsewhere, but it's just another due diligence item to be aware of and to
Yeah.
handle. Where are you at in West Virginia? I'm originally from Ohio.
I'm in Charleston.
Okay, I don't know where Charleston, West Virginia is, but yeah, I grew up near Cleveland.
Okay, so Cleveland is about 4 hours from me. I've actually done some deals in Akron, which is kind of close to Cleveland.
Oh, I know,
Um,
yeah.
yeah,
Akron, interesting. Okay.
yeah. It
Yeah.
very, very just with houses. I actually did a land
Ah,
deal in Akron. Weird,
wow.
right? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal, of course, but
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so when it comes down to like finding land, and you said somebody needs to look at it. You're not going out to look at this land, are you?
No, no. So we have local realtors that help us in every market, and that has been really essential because, especially if you're going and doing new areas regularly, there's just so much variation and market norms, random things that could totally make your lot worthless that might not be applicable where you're accustomed to doing business.
Yeah,
When I learned in Pueblo West, right, there's a section of town that you do need septic. But nobody would get a perk test before closing. They might, if they were a builder and a little more savvy, they might drill some holes, just make sure there wasn't a bunch of shale, make sure that excavation wasn't going to be a big deal. But all of the soil was essentially perkable, right?
yeah,
And so no one really worried about it. And then when I got to North Carolina, and there's lots of land that is unsuitable, and the cost to do an engineered septic would, or bring in enough fill would be so prohibitive that for all intents and purposes, they're worthless. That was a big difference. And so if you take that kind of heuristic that I'd established in Pueblo West and applied it to North Carolina, you could get in trouble. And this is true across a variety of due diligence factors. So you got to have a local expert to help you figure out the nuances of that market that you might not know until you've done a lot of deals.
love it. So let's say I'm just getting started off in land. I'm going into a market I'm not familiar with. What is the right way to find the right agent and to reach out to them?
So you're going to have to call a number of people. I like to look around at land solds, and oftentimes you can find names that pop up over and over again. It's very much the 80-20 rule where a small percentage of people are doing a lot of the business. And so if you can find someone that's selling a lot of land, or ideally several realtors, call all of them and just be blunt with them. And Travis, hey, I'm an investor. I have a few lots that I'm working on buying here. I need someone to sell them with. Some of them might go through, some of them will fall out. If you're interested and willing to help me on these and double check my numbers, I mean, I can give you all my business. Um, no worries if you're not interested. That has worked very well. You have to speak confidently. You have to make it clear you are doing business, and you have to make it clear that they are going to get that business, and you're not going to waste their time and take advantage of them. If they're good, they will have kind of a funnel just like we do, and we're verifying whether a lead is legitimate that we're talking to. They do the same thing. Is this just some idiot that's going to waste my time that saw a YouTube video, or is this a real person that's going to give me business and ultimately lead to me making money? You got to make that clear very quickly when you're speaking to them. And then from there, assuming they're on board, they do want to do business. Ask them, what are you seeing that's moving most quickly? What are you seeing that, potentially might throw a newbie to this market off where there's something I might not be aware of that could cause a lot to be less desirable or worthless. Go through just your due diligence sheet with them. We do that, and then kind of as a corollary to all this, you can start to develop a specific market due diligence sheet. We have our main sheet, right, and our main checklist, and then we have an overlay, the market specific due diligence sheet, where, okay, in this specific market, we're not closing unless we have a perk test. In this specific market, our realtor has to walk it, whatever.
Yeah.
So I know I got a little off there, but that's how we do it.
Awesome. No, you're good. So when you're doing your due diligence, you right, a lot of when you're doing house due diligence, you do a lot of that up front. Are
Mhm.
you guys going under contract and then doing most of your due diligence?
No, we try and do most of it beforehand.
Yeah,
In the Carolinas, the vast majority of the time, if you cancel, you're still getting charged for a title search and for attorney
yeah,
work. So
yeah,
keep that in mind in attorney states. Canceling has costs. Even in Florida, our title company, we have a great relationship with them. They do all of our deals, but they reach a point where they run out of free canceled title searches and you have to start paying for them. So be
yeah,
aware of this. You can't say to the company, hey, separate from the seller, hold off on your title search, hold off on doing any work. We want to verify a few more things before committing to that expense. So we do that a lot, but we really try and have our due diligence done where we can make an offer that we can stick to. I hate renegotiating. Some people, that's their whole business model. I don't like that. Sometimes it happens just because of things we can't foresee. Sometimes our realtor can't get out to walk it in 2 weeks and it appears to be a really good deal, so we'll put it under contract anyways, but we really try and make offers that we know we can stick to.
Awesome. Awesome. I agree with you. Renegotiating is like a sin, you know?
Yeah, I really don't like it unless there's sometimes things legitimately come up that you didn't know or something changes, but yeah, I dislike it as well.
Yeah, so I'm sure your due diligence sheet is a long, I mean, I'm sure you have a lot that you're checking up on. What would you say is the, top things someone, like a perk test, right? Like does the
hmm
land perk. What is the top things you would say a new wholesaler that wants to get into land needs to look for with land? And I know it's dependent on the location.
Yeah, it's so dependent on the type of land. So I'll say, think about what your end user wants to do and all the things they would have to check. And so if it's just a quarter acre infill lot in one of these endless subdivisions in Florida, all right, you're probably going to sell this to a builder or somebody that's going to hire a builder.
Yeah,
And so is there water, sewer, power there? If there's not sewer and water, is it one of those markets where it's really standard to put in well and septic? A lot of those Florida markets, the aquifer is like 100 foot or 200 foot down, so it's very cheap to drill a well and very standard. You can look around and see all the lots sold around it where they just well and septic. Okay, great. Then that might not matter at all. It might be the same as, having a water and sewer line for all intents and purposes. Well, what else? Topography. Is there a big hole, right? Are they going to have to bring in a ton of fill to get that lot up enough? Is it in a flood zone when everyone else is not in a flood zone? There's plenty of markets where everyone's in a flood zone and that's just normal. So look at the maps, and if you see that all the houses are built on lots that don't have a flood zone, or same thing with wetland, then that can be something to look out for. Along with that, you know, think about the quality of the properties next door. If there's a meth house next door, that's going to affect your ability to resell. So those kind of quarter acre or just small infill lots that builders are going to buy are easier. If you're getting into large acreage, or if you're getting like a large piece of industrial land or commercial land where you're going to sell it to a builder or developer who's going to do a huge project, maybe a strip center, or ideally put, outdoor storage, you're getting into a far more complex process where there's likely additional entitlements they're going to need, utility extensions, and in that case, you're going to need, if you don't have the experience, someone on your team who has done that. Talk to the county, talk to the city. That's a little too much for this podcast. But the point I'm really trying to drive home is who are you selling this to? What do they want to do with it? And what are the questions they're going to ask to make sure they can do that with it? And that's your due diligence.
awesome. That was awesome, man. Thank you. You've provided so much value here. I bet you there's somebody here that's going to be watching this that's just it's going to take them somewhere, and that's what this is for, right? Are you doing anything like coaching? Are you helping people outside of your land business?
I'll do some coaching, consulting, helping people get started for the right person, but I'm not trying to make a huge business out of it. It's worth discussing. I mean, my boss from college hired me. That kind of thing is kind of fun to do for the right person. But yeah, so occasionally.
And are you buying from like other wholesalers? Like if somebody has a deal they think you might want.
Man, I haven't been because I've had a lot of these submitted, and people are just so full of it on the comps where I just want to kind of say, no, I don't want to do that. I'll partner with you and you can take more profit on the back end than the assignment fee you would have gotten. But I don't want to put that out there because I've had wasted so much time with just very BS comps being sent for someone
Yeah.
trying to assign a lot.
Yeah. I understand. I get it seems like most of the wholesale. I hear people all the time talking about how their business is doing great just buying from wholesalers. I just
Mhm.
haven't had that luck.
Agreed. Strongly
Yeah,
agreed. Maybe if you're flipping houses and you're doing the whole remodel, or if you're doing subdivides, but just for simple land flips, there's rarely that kind of spread to make that doable.
sure. Well, I appreciate you, Dan. How can people reach you, if they do want to partner with you or just have a question?
DanHaberkost.com or on any of the socials. And then the Big Picture Blueprint is my podcast. I have a co-host, Mason McDonald, on that, and we interview people and talk about what we're doing today in our business as well.
Awesome, man. It's a pleasure to, Thank you for coming on here and talking with me. Hopefully, I can have you back on in the future to just get some updates from you. If you could leave someone before we leave, if you could leave someone with one final thing, it could be business, life, in general. What kind of gem would you leave them with?
Just pick something and stick with it. I mean, you can make millions of dollars with land or with houses, apartments, storage, but you can't do it with all of them. So don't jump around. Stick with something, get really good at it, and do it for a decade plus, and you'll be in a very good spot.